Hey everybody, welcome back to Hot News. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you enjoyed the little clips that we left for you over the weekend on just singular topics. Now it's back to a full episode. And for everybody who enjoyed Game of Thrones, I hope you enjoyed the series finale. And I think we can all agree that Geralt was the rightful ruler of the Iron Throne. I mean, after all of the work he's done for Redania and Temeria, he deserved to rule over everybody. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the top news topic for today, which is Google and Huawei just going fisticuffs thanks to President Trump and his decree that companies that have any ties with Chinese companies like Huawei, they must cut ties and cease doing business. And that left Google in a bit of conundrum because, you know, they have Android, and how do you provide Android to a company that's now blacklisted from you working with them? Well, apparently that is now made certain thanks to a report, an exclusive report from Reuters, which detailed some of the changes that Google and Android are going to be making with their deal that they have going on with Huawei. Obviously, part of the difficulty here is that Android is based on open source software, so they're not going to be able to block everything permanently. And in fact, Huawei can still go ahead and use Android, just the publicly available versions of it, not necessarily anything that's coming out behind the scenes. So the biggest changes that are coming out is that Google will no longer provide backside Android support for Huawei going forward, and also they will no longer be able to use proprietary apps on their phones going forward either. So that means anything that's going to be coming out like the Mate 30 lineup, those will not have Gmail, YouTube, Google Drive, or any of those typical apps that one would expect, even the Play Store, on them whatsoever. However, this doesn't mean that anybody with a current Huawei device, which would be one person in this office, as well as my wife, as well as millions of people around the world, since they sell more phones than Apple does at this point. So they will still be able to have app support at the current time. They will still get app updates. Their Gmail should continue to be supported, but their actual Android side will not be supported from this point forward. So no more updates going out from Google to Huawei, but then in the future, everything that's being supported on current devices will no longer be supported on future devices. So that leaves Huawei in a bit of a pickle. That leaves the rest of the world in a bit of a pickle since, I mean, even here in a country like South Africa, Huawei is tremendously popular thanks to their low price, their great feature set, and just basically giving you a decent Android experience at minimal to no cost. But that is likely going to be hindered from now on, and it's going to create this weird environment where you have an Android experience potentially, and then you just don't get any of the core Gmail apps. And this is in conjunction with the fact that Huawei has been notoriously a butthole about like rooting devices and not putting ROMs on them. So like that's kind of biting them in the butt, because locking down the bootloader on their side means that you can't put your own OS on it or just have some sort of ROM, because Huawei being buttholes. So hopefully they would loosen their stance on that, considering that, you know, they can't use the official Google stuff, so kind of support it unofficially. That would make sense to me. But then this is also tied into a report that came out back in March that Huawei has built software for smartphones and laptops in case something like this were to happen. In case Microsoft and Google were barred from doing business with them in the future, they have their own smartphone OS and laptop OS ready to go. However, given the popularity of Google services, given the popularity of just how ubiquitous using Google is, I doubt that's necessarily going to be something that's a legitimate solution for a lot of people. Maybe on the ultra low end devices that they have, I can see some people just being like, it's kind of like using Tizen. You just kind of, you're paying for the price. You're not getting the mainstream OS, but that's okay. Or buying like a knockoff smartwatch. You just have a garbage operating system, but you only paid $20 for it, so who really cares? That's kind of how I would view that, but obviously they haven't announced what their actual OS is going to be. But Google and Huawei have ended up in a pickle. Obviously, there's a ton of discussion going around the scene talking about what could be China's potential response. I mean, when you have a juggernaut like Huawei being constricted like this by the US government, could the Chinese government respond in kind by barring access to rare earth metals, which are pretty much exclusively used in smartphones, and would it then raise the price and make it so that production has to be shifted elsewhere, which is kind of what's happening with the trade war that's going on with tariffs increasing, all of this. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. A lot of this is very political, and there is still the allegations that Huawei is providing information from their smartphones to the Chinese government. The US intelligence agency is saying this, but then there's plenty of people on the other side saying that there's no evidence for this. It's a really confusing time to live in, but for now, in case you have a Huawei device, you are still going to be mostly okay, except for Google updates, so you won't be able to get on Android Q. And it's possible that, Huawei would just build their own custom Android skin on top of publicly available Android, but then it would just come out a generation later than everybody else, which wouldn't give them as much of a flagship advantage, but that might be a sacrifice that many people are willing to take. I don't know, but without the core functionality of Google Apps, where is this gonna go? Is Huawei gonna succeed? Tons of questions.
I have so many questions!
That can't be answered right now. We'll just have to see where this goes. I'm keen to hear what you guys think about this down in the comments down below. Huawei, are they spying? Do you agree with the US intelligence agency? Do you agree with President Trump's order on this? Do you agree with Google's move to block all of this stuff? I wanna know what you think. But let's talk about what South Korea thinks about Windows. They think it's too gosh dang expensive. It's ridiculous. It's too expensive to support. They can't, it's always going out of fashion. Free Windows 7 support ends in January 2020. What is this garbage? So the South Korean government has announced that they are planning on switching over to Linux in order to save on costs of support and all of that good stuff. There's not a whole lot of details mentioned, like which distribution of Linux they're gonna be using and when this transition period is gonna take place, but gosh dang it, Microsoft, you're losing a government. This is your own dang fault for being so greedy and trying to grab everybody's cash. It's weird, this is wrong, stop it. Linux, forever, master race, we all know this. But they're putting Linux in Microsoft, but then that doesn't change the South Koreans, whatever. It's over, Microsoft, you and me, finished, finito. Done. Don't come back. And then in case you want more information about the architectures of Zen 2 and Navi, just like last year when it came to NVIDIA's graphics card launches of the RTX series, which back then we thought was the GTX 11 series, there was the leak that NVIDIA would be talking about their next-gen architecture at Hot Chips in August. Well, it appears that AMD is now confirming that, yes, we will be talking about Zen 2 and Navi at Hot Chips in August, except for the difference this year is that AMD is like, yeah, this exists, yeah, it's gonna launch in Q3, whereas back last year, NVIDIA was just like, shut your mouth, nobody told you anything about our graphics cards. But you know who else isn't gonna be talking? Janitors. In space.
My job, toilets and boilers, boilers and toilets.
NASA's Astra V Cube robot completes its first hardware test in space to become one of the first robot janitors that's ever existed in a zero-G environment. My friends, times are changing, and robot janitors, they're coming for your lives. We have a robot vacuum sitting right over there next to the hot news couch. Gonna replace Reece with it next. Robot cleaning up the office, tell you what. Speaking of getting rid of stuff, bad segue. AMD. Wrong segue. Come on, Brett. Get your act together. HP has acquired Cray, the company that's known for building supercomputers. HP Enterprises has picked them up for $1.3 billion. This is obviously coming out after the announcement between AMD and Cray and the US Department of Energy of building the world's fastest supercomputer with 1.5 exaflops processing power using EPYC CPUs and then graphics cards from AMD. Well, Cray was supposed to be the one that was assisting with it. It does look like HP is going to be taking that over. So, exaflop level computing now done by HP. A new report coming out from the Wall Street Journal says that Twitch streamers can get paid up to $50,000 an hour to stream any given video game. And that's not from their Twitch earnings, that's from the companies paying them to do that. That is, one, quite insane, but then two, probably worth it when you consider how many game sales are as a result of the Twitch streamers promoting it and getting it out to their tens and hundreds of thousands of people in their audience, because it's not just the Twitch stream, you have to also think that it's the YouTube replays. There's a whole lot of finances that go into this, and it can't be denied the amount of impact that influencers, at least top influencers, have had in the market, leading to sales and leading to interest in video games. I mean, just look at Summit 1G's playthrough of Sea of Thieves playthrough. playing of Sea of Thieves. That was a game that very few people were talking about up until when he got into it, and then he had thousands and tens of thousands of people watching it, and I'm sure they can contribute some of their sales to just the fact that he played it. So $50,000 an hour might sound outrageous, but if you're selling over $50,000 an hour's worth of games when you're playing the game, then the marketing cost makes sense, don't you think? Speaking of things that make sense, if you have a Ryzen 3000 series CPU, which nobody does because those things aren't out yet, and if you want to watch the main channel video that we did over in UFD Tech talking about when we expect those to be released, you can watch that right up there. But Gigabyte has announced that with the X470 and B450 motherboards, you will get PCI Express 4.0 on them if you have a Ryzen 3000 motherboard. So that means, or Ryzen 3000 CPU rather. So that means that if you upgrade your CPU, you get backwards functionality improvement on a last generation thing. That's the way to do things, Intel, okay? You support things after a couple of years. Come on! AMD's winning in the just like win over your customers department. Intel, be better, please. We all want this from you. Do it.
Just do it!
And then speaking of being better, there's been a lot of reports coming out recently about the treatment of individuals in the games industry, specifically when it comes to crunch time at Epic Games with their Fortnite stuff. Every single patch is like crunch time for other major studios. It's been a mess. Then there was a whole lot of controversy coming out about other studios who particularly treat contractors like garbage when it comes to overtime and all of that sort of stuff. CD Projekt Red is talking about the Cyberpunk 2077 crunch time, saying that they're gonna try to do their best, be more humane, and be known as a company that not only cares for gamers, but also game developers, which is quite good. And then there's also a rumor that Cyberpunk 2077 will have its release date announced at E3 this year, so that's super exciting. And you know what else is super exciting? Monopolies, at least in a sort of kind of way. TSMC appears to have a monopoly on all of the 5G chip orders that are coming from fabless companies like Qualcomm or HiSilicon, which is known for making Huawei's 5G modem, or Huawei's chips. That's the word I'm looking for. Anyways, it looks like TSMC is grabbing all of the orders for 5G chips and is going to be producing them. So in case you want to know what company is going to be making tons of cash in the near future, it's TSMC, not Huawei or Qualcomm. Haha, that's the end of hot news. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Check out our displays wherever you want to buy them at the link. Not wherever you want to buy them. There's only one place to buy them, Dope Metal Prints, but you can buy a whole bunch of them. Check them out at displate.com/UFD Tech Official. Also, if you want to support us directly, continue our endeavors of promoting, producing hot news as well as the UFD Tech channel, you can do so over on patreon.com/UFD Tech. Your support means a lot to us, especially in this environment where we're trying to run 2 channels and we're trying to figure it all out, and just knowing that we have the financial stability to pay everybody's salaries is a good thing. Anyways, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our hot news. I'm Brett with the Hot News channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Love you too. Bye.